The psychology of stalking and ghosting. Introduction to the concept of stalking and ghosting and their effects on victims. The psychology behind stalking and ghosting behaviors. Different types of stalking and ghosting behaviors and how they manifest in different contexts. Risk factors for stalking and ghosting behavior in offenders. The impact of technology on stalking and ghosting behavior. Trauma and PTSD in victims of stalking and ghosting. Coping mechanisms and support systems for victims of stalking and ghosting. The legal implications of stalking and ghosting behavior. Rehabilitation and treatment options for offenders. The future of research and intervention for stalking and ghosting behavior. Stalking and ghosting are two behaviors that have become increasingly common in our society, particularly with the rise of social media and online communication. Stalking refers to repeated and unwanted contact or attention from one individual or entity towards another, while ghosting refers to the sudden or gradual ending of contact without any explanation or warning. Both behaviors can have significant and long-lasting effects on the victims, including emotional trauma, fear, anxiety, and depression. Stalking is a serious form of harassment and can take many forms, including following someone, monitoring their movements, and repeatedly contacting them without their consent. It is often done with the intent to control or intimidate the victim and can cause them to feel unsafe and fearful for their well-being. Stalking can also have significant psychological effects on victims, including feelings of anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Ghosting, on the other hand, is a more subtle form of emotional abuse that involves the sudden or gradual ending of communication between two individuals without any explanation or warning. It is often used as a way to avoid confrontation or difficult conversations, but it can be incredibly hurtful to the person who is being ghosted. Victims of ghosting can feel confused, rejected, and abandoned, which can lead to feelings of low self-esteem, anxiety, and depression. In recent years, the prevalence of stalking and ghosting has increased, particularly in the context of online communication and social media. The anonymity and ease of online communication have made it easier for people to engage in these behaviors without fear of consequences, which has only made the problem worse. As a society, we must work together to recognize the seriousness of these behaviors and take steps to prevent them from happening in the first place. This article will explore the concepts of stalking and ghosting, including their effects on victims from both a personal and psychological perspective. We will examine the different types of stalking and ghosting, as well as the warning signs and red flags that victims should be aware of. Additionally, we will discuss ways to protect oneself from these behaviors and how to seek support and guidance if you or someone you know is a victim. By increasing awareness of these issues, we can work towards creating a safer and more respectful society for everyone.
Our discussion delves deeper into the concept of stalking, its different forms, and its potential impact on victims. Stalking is a pervasive problem that affects millions of people worldwide, and understanding its different forms is crucial to recognizing and preventing it. One form of stalking is cyberstalking, which involves the use of electronic communication or the internet to harass or intimidate someone. This form of stalking can take many different forms, including sending unwanted messages or emails, posting offensive or threatening messages on social media, or even tracking someone's online activity without their knowledge or consent. Another form of stalking is intimate partner stalking, which involves a current or former romantic partner who uses stalking behaviors to control or intimidate their partner. This can take many different forms, including following them, spying on them, or even physically attacking them. A third form of stalking is stranger stalking, which involves an individual stalking someone they do not know. This can include behaviors such as following someone on the street or sending unwanted gifts or messages. Regardless of the form that stalking takes, it can have a profound impact on victims. Stalking can cause significant psychological distress, including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Victims may also experience physical symptoms such as headaches, insomnia, or loss of appetite. Furthermore, stalking can affect a victim's sense of safety and security. Victims may feel constantly on edge, as though they are being watched or followed, and may avoid certain places or activities to minimize their risk of encountering the stalker. This can severely limit their freedom and ability to live their lives as they would like. The effects of stalking can be long-lasting, and victims may require significant support and assistance to recover. This can include counseling, medical treatment, and legal intervention. One important step in preventing stalking is to recognize the warning signs. These can include persistent unwanted contact, following, spying, and other behaviors that make the victim feel unsafe or uncomfortable. It is important to take these warning signs seriously and to seek help if necessary. In conclusion, stalking is a serious problem that can have a significant impact on victims. Understanding its different forms and the potential impact on victims is crucial in recognizing and preventing this behavior. By taking the warning signs seriously and providing support and assistance to victims, we can work towards creating a safer and more just society for all. Is it a real threat or just my imagination? If you feel like you are being stalked or ghosted, it is important to take your feelings seriously and seek help if necessary. While it is possible that your fears are based on imagination, it is also possible that there is a real threat. Trust your instincts and seek support from friends, family, or professionals who can help you assess the situation and take steps to protect yourself if necessary. It is always better to err on the side of caution when it comes to your safety and well-being. How bipolar people react to ghosting and stalking when it can be issue with their own psychic. Bipolar disorder is a mental health condition that affects a person's mood, energy, and ability to function. It is a serious illness that requires proper treatment and management. The way a person with bipolar disorder reacts to ghosting and stalking may vary depending on their current mood state and how well their condition is being managed. In a manic or hypomanic episode, a person with bipolar disorder may be more impulsive and prone to reckless behavior, which could include stalking or obsessively contacting someone who has ghosted them. In a depressive episode, they may feel more vulnerable and be more sensitive to rejection, making ghosting particularly difficult to handle. It is important to note that not all people with bipolar disorder will have the same reaction to ghosting or stalking, and some may not experience it at all. It is also important to remember that having a mental health condition does not excuse stalking or abusive behavior. If you or someone you know is struggling with bipolar disorder and is experiencing difficulties with ghosting or stalking, it is important to seek professional help from a mental health provider. They can provide support, guidance, and appropriate treatment to help manage the symptoms and reduce the risk of engaging in harmful behaviors. How it is when a person with bipolar disorder feels ghosted or stalked. It's important to note that each individual with bipolar disorder may have different reactions and coping mechanisms when it comes to feeling ghosted or stalker. However, here are a few possible scenarios. Feeling abandoned, ghosting behavior can trigger feelings of abandonment and rejection, which can be particularly difficult for someone with bipolar disorder who may already struggle with emotional regulation. Heightened anxiety. Stalking behavior can cause extreme anxiety, especially if the individual feels like they are being constantly watched or followed. This can trigger hypomanic or manic episodes in individuals with bipolar disorder. Paranoia. Individuals with bipolar disorder may be more susceptible to feelings of paranoia, especially if they are experiencing a manic episode. Stalking behavior can exacerbate these feelings, leading to heightened paranoia and fear. Increased risk of suicide. If an individual with bipolar disorder is experiencing severe symptoms, such as feelings of hopelessness or suicidal thoughts, the added stress and fear from stalking behavior can increase their risk of self-harm. It's important for individuals with bipolar disorder who are experiencing stalking or ghosting behavior to seek support from a mental health professional and safety measures from law enforcement if necessary. Can a stalker be a ghoster? Yes, a stalker can also be a ghoster. In fact, it is not uncommon for stalkers to use ghosting as a way to manipulate and control their victims. They may disappear and reappear at random intervals, leaving their victims unsure of what to expect and keeping them in a constant state of anxiety and uncertainty. This can be especially difficult for victims to cope with, as they may have a heightened sense of fear and vulnerability due to the stalking behavior. It is important for victims to seek support and safety measures to protect themselves from the stalker's tactics.
How to report stalking or harassment online? Reporting stalking or harassment to website administrators or law enforcement agencies is a way to protect yourself and others from unwanted or harmful behavior. Stalking or harassment can include being followed, contacted, monitored, or threatened by another person repeatedly and without your consent. This can happen online or offline and can cause you fear, distress, or anxiety. To report stalking or harassment, you can follow these steps. If you are in immediate danger, call 999 and ask for the police. They will respond as soon as possible and help you to stay safe. You can also text 999 if you have registered with the emergency SMS service. If you are not in immediate danger but want to report a stalking or harassment incident, call 101 or visit your local police station. You can also report online if your local police force offers this service. You will need to provide details of what happened, when and where it happened, who was involved, and any evidence you have, such as messages, emails, photos, or videos. The police will record your report and investigate the case. They will also provide you with support and advice on how to protect yourself and prevent further incidents. If the stalking or harassment happened on a website or social media platform, you can also report it to the website administrator or moderator. They may be able to block, delete, or suspend the account of the person who is stalking or harassing you. They may also be able to provide you with information that can help the police with their investigation. You can usually find an option to report abuse or harassment on the website or app itself, or contact their customer service team. If you need emotional support or practical advice, you can contact a helpline or a support organization that specializes in stalking or harassment issues. They can listen to your concerns, offer you guidance, and refer you to other services that can help you. Some of the organizations you can contact are National Stalking Helpline 080-880-0300, Peldon National Stalking Advocacy Service 02038664107, Protection Against Stalking 080-880-0300, Victim Support 08081689111. How to empower yourself and others to understand, recognize, and address stalking? Empowering yourself and others to understand, recognize, and address stalking is a way to prevent and stop this harmful behavior. Stalking is a pattern of repeated and unwanted attention, contact, or harassment that causes fear or distress in the victim. Stalking can happen online or offline, by someone known or unknown to the victim, and can involve various tactics, such as following, watching, calling, texting, emailing, sending gifts, or threatening. To empower yourself and others to understand, recognize, and address stalking, you can follow these tips. Educate yourself and others about what stalking is, how common it is, what are the signs and effects of stalking, and what are the laws and resources related to stalking. You can use reliable sources of information, such as websites, brochures, videos, or podcasts from organizations that specialize in stalking prevention and intervention. You can also attend or organize workshops, trainings, or events that raise awareness and educate people about stalking. Support yourself and others who are experiencing stalking. If you are being stalked, you are not alone and you are not to blame. You have the right to feel safe and respected. You can seek help from trusted friends, family members, counselors, advocates, or law enforcement agencies. You can also take steps to protect yourself, such as documenting the stalking incidents, changing your passwords and privacy settings, blocking the stalker's contact, and creating a safety plan. If you know someone who is being stalked, you can listen to them without judging or blaming them, believe them and validate their feelings, respect their choices and boundaries, offer them practical and emotional support, and refer them to appropriate resources or services. Speak up against stalking and challenge the myths and stereotypes that normalize or justify this behavior. You can use your voice and influence to raise awareness and advocate for change in your community. You can also challenge the myths and stereotypes that minimize or excuse stalking, such as stalking is romantic, stalking only happens to celebrities, stalking is harmless, or stalking victims like the attention. You can use facts and evidence to debunk these myths and stereotypes and promote a culture of respect and consent in all relationships. Who is a ghoster? A ghoster is a term used to describe a person who suddenly stops all communication with someone else without any explanation or justification. This behavior can occur in various types of relationships, such as romantic relationships, friendships, or professional relationships. Ghosting can cause emotional distress to the person being ghosted, as they are left feeling confused, hurt, and rejected. It can also lead to feelings of low self-esteem, anxiety, and depression. In some cases, repeated experiences of ghosting can lead to a fear of abandonment and trust issues in future relationships. The reasons for ghosting can vary, but they often include a lack of interest or commitment, conflict avoidance, or a desire to avoid confrontation. Who is a stalker? A stalker is someone who repeatedly harasses, follows, or threatens another person, causing them fear or distress. Stalking behaviors can include unwanted communication, surveillance, unwanted gifts, and physical or online stalking. It is important to note that not all stalkers are strangers. In fact, many are known to the victim, such as an ex-partner or acquaintance. Stalking can be a form of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, and it is a serious criminal offense. Can you give examples of stalking sentences and behaviors? Here are some examples of stalking behaviors and sentences. Following someone or showing up at their workplace, school, or home uninvited. Example sentence: I noticed you weren't at work today. I came by to make sure you're okay. Making unwanted phone calls, text messages, or emails. Example sentence: why haven't you been answering my calls? You need to talk to me. Monitoring someone's online activity, such as through social media, email, or GPS tracking. Example sentence: I saw you posted on Instagram. Why didn't you respond to my message? I know where you are right now. Sending unwanted gifts or letters. Example sentence: I got you something special. I hope you like it. Why haven't you responded to my messages? Threatening or intimidating behavior, such as making threats of physical harm or blackmail. Example sentence: if you don't do what I want, I will make sure everyone knows your secrets. It's important to note that these behaviors can become more severe and dangerous over time, and it's important to take any stalking behavior seriously and seek help if necessary. Can you give examples of ghosting sentences and behaviors? Here are some examples of ghosting sentences and behaviors. Ignoring someone's calls, messages, and emails without any explanation or response. Suddenly disappearing from someone's life without any warning or explanation. Canceling plans without giving a reason or rescheduling. avoiding someone in person and online, not showing up for a planned meeting or date, refusing to acknowledge someone's presence or efforts to communicate, responding with short, curt messages or one-word replies that indicate disinterest, blocking someone on social media or other communication platforms without explanation. These are just a few examples, but the common thread is that the person is intentionally avoiding or ignoring the other person without any explanation or closure. This can be hurtful and confusing for the person being ghosted, and can lead to feelings of rejection and self-doubt. Different types of stalking and ghosting behaviors and how they manifest in different contexts. Stalking and ghosting can take many different forms, and the context in which they occur can have a significant impact on how they manifest. Understanding the different types of stalking and ghosting behaviors can help victims and their support systems recognize when these behaviors are occurring and take appropriate steps to address them. Types of stalking behaviors. Traditional stalking. This type of stalking involves a persistent and unwanted pursuit of an individual, typically in a physical sense. The stalker may follow the victim, show up unexpectedly at their workplace or home, send unwanted gifts, and engage in other forms of intrusive behavior. Cyberstalking. With the advent of the internet and social media, stalking has become easier than ever. Cyberstalking involves the use of technology to track and harass an individual, such as sending unwanted messages, creating fake social media profiles, and monitoring the victim's online activity. Obsessive stalking. This type of stalking involves an individual who becomes fixated on their victim to an unhealthy degree. They may engage in obsessive behaviors such as repeatedly checking the victim's social media profiles or monitoring their movements. Intimate partner stalking. This type of stalking occurs when a current or former partner engages in stalking behavior. It may involve physical and emotional abuse and can be a sign of a dangerous relationship. Types of ghosting behaviors. Social ghosting. This type of ghosting occurs when a person suddenly stops responding to messages or calls from someone they were previously communicating with. It is common in casual relationships or in situations where the individuals have not been communicating for a long period of time. Relationship ghosting. This type of ghosting occurs when a person suddenly ends a romantic relationship without any explanation or warning. It can be a traumatic experience for the person being ghosted, as they are left with many unanswered questions and feelings of confusion. Workplace ghosting. This type of ghosting occurs when a person suddenly stops showing up for work without any explanation or warning. It can be disruptive to the workplace and can cause stress and uncertainty for colleagues and managers. Friend ghosting. This type of ghosting occurs when a person suddenly stops communicating with a friend without any explanation or warning. It can be hurtful and confusing for the friend who is being ghosted. It is important to note that these types of stalking and ghosting behaviors can overlap and occur in combination with each other. For example, a stalker may engage in cyber-stalking in addition to traditional stalking behaviors. Similarly, a person who is being ghosted in a romantic relationship may also experience social ghosting from their friends who are aware of the situation but do not know how to respond. In summary, stalking and ghosting behaviors can manifest in different ways depending on the context in which they occur. Understanding the different types of these behaviors can help individuals recognize when they are being victimized and take appropriate steps to address the situation.
The psychology behind stalking and ghosting behaviors. Stalking and ghosting are two behaviors that can have serious psychological consequences for both the perpetrator and the victim. Understanding the psychology behind these behaviors can help shed light on why they occur and how they can be prevented. Stalking is a pattern of behavior that involves unwanted or obsessive attention toward another person. It can take many forms, including physical stalking, cyberstalking, and verbal harassment. The motivations for stalking can vary, but typically involve a desire for control and power over the victim,
as well as a distorted view of the relationship between the stalker and the victim. Research suggests that stalkers often have underlying psychological issues, such as attachment disorders, personality disorders, and mood disorders. They may also have a history of trauma or abuse, which can contribute to their need for control and their lack of empathy for their victims. One theory that has been proposed to explain stalking behavior is the attachment theory. According to this theory, stalkers often have insecure attachment styles, which are characterized by a fear of abandonment and a need for constant reassurance and validation. When their attachment needs are not met, they may resort to stalking as a way to regain control and maintain a sense of connection to the victim. Ghosting, on the other hand, is a behavior that involves cutting off all communication with another person without any explanation or warning. It can be especially distressing for the victim because they are left with no closure or understanding of what went wrong in the relationship. Like stalking, ghosting can also have psychological roots. Research suggests that people who ghost may have a fear of confrontation or rejection and may use avoidance as a way to protect themselves from emotional pain. They may also have a tendency to avoid difficult emotions, such as guilt or shame, and may find it easier to simply cut off contact rather than face those feelings. Both stalking and ghosting behaviors can have significant effects on the victim's mental health. Victims of stalking may experience fear, anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. They may also feel a sense of shame or embarrassment, as well as a loss of control over their own lives. Victims of ghosting may also experience negative psychological effects, such as feelings of rejection, betrayal, and loss. They may also struggle with self-doubt and a sense of inadequacy, wondering what they did wrong to cause the other person to cut off contact. It is important to recognize that both stalking and ghosting behaviors are unacceptable and can have serious consequences. If you or someone you know is experiencing these behaviors, it is important to seek help and support from a trained professional. With the right treatment and support, victims can recover from the psychological effects of stalking and ghosting and move forward with their lives.
Risk factors for stalking and ghosting behavior in offenders. Stalking and ghosting behaviors are often associated with offenders who have specific risk factors that make them more likely to engage in these behaviors. Identifying these risk factors can help professionals better understand the motivations behind stalking and ghosting and develop effective strategies for prevention and intervention. One of the key risk factors for stalking behavior is a history of violence, particularly intimate partner violence. Research has shown that individuals who have a history of violence or aggression towards romantic partners are more likely to engage in stalking behaviors. Other risk factors for stalking include a history of mental illness or substance abuse, social isolation, and a sense of entitlement or ownership over the victim. Similarly, there are several risk factors for ghosting behavior. One of the key risk factors is a lack of empathy or concern for others. Individuals who engage in ghosting behaviors may not fully understand or appreciate the impact their actions have on their victims. Other risk factors for ghosting include a history of commitment issues or avoidance, a desire for control or power in relationships, and a lack of communication skills or emotional intelligence. It is important to note that not all individuals with these risk factors will engage in stalking or ghosting behaviors. However, these risk factors can help professionals identify individuals who may be more likely to engage in these behaviors and develop appropriate interventions. In addition to these individual risk factors, there are also environmental risk factors that can contribute to stalking and ghosting behaviors. For example, workplaces or social environments that promote competition or encourage aggressive behavior can increase the likelihood of individuals engaging in stalking or ghosting. Similarly, social media and other online platforms can create an environment where stalking and ghosting are normalized and even romanticized. It is important for professionals to be aware of these risk factors and take steps to address them. This may include developing policies and procedures that discourage aggressive or controlling behavior, providing training and education on healthy relationship dynamics, and promoting a culture of empathy and respect in social and professional environments. Overall, understanding the risk factors for stalking and ghosting behaviors is an important step in developing effective prevention and intervention strategies. By identifying individuals who may be at risk for these behaviors and addressing underlying risk factors, professionals can help prevent stalking and ghosting and ensure the safety and well-being of victims.
The impact of technology on stalking and ghosting behavior. The advent of technology has significantly impacted the way stalking and ghosting behaviors occur. It has given stalkers and ghosters easier access to their victims and has provided them with new tools to carry out their behaviors. This chapter will explore the impact of technology on stalking and ghosting behavior. One of the most significant impacts of technology on stalking behavior is the ease with which a stalker can access their victim. With the rise of social media and online communication, it is easier than ever before for a stalker to find and contact their victim. They can use social media platforms to gather information about their victim's whereabouts, interests, and social connections. This information can then be used to track their victims' movements and to gain access to them. Technology has also provided stalkers with new tools to harass their victims. Cyberstalking, or the use of electronic communication to harass or threaten someone, has become more prevalent in recent years. This can include sending threatening messages, posting derogatory comments online, or creating fake profiles to gain access to their victim's personal information. Cyberstalking can be particularly challenging to deal with, as it can happen at any time and from anywhere, making it difficult for victims to escape their tormentor. Similarly, the impact of technology on ghosting behavior has been significant. With the rise of online dating and social media, it is easier than ever before for someone to disappear from another's life without explanation. This can be particularly traumatic for the person being ghosted, as they are left without closure or understanding of why the relationship ended. Moreover, technology has made it easier for ghosters to avoid confrontation. Rather than having to confront someone face to face, they can simply block them on social media or stop responding to their messages. This can be hurtful to the person being ghosted, as they are left without any explanation for the sudden end of the relationship. Another impact of technology on ghosting behavior is the phenomenon of zombieing. This is when someone who has previously ghosted their partner suddenly reappears, often months or even years later, without any explanation. This can be confusing and emotionally challenging for the person being ghosted, as they may have moved on from the relationship and find the sudden reappearance of their ex-partner distressing. In conclusion, the impact of technology on stalking and ghosting behavior has been significant. While technology has provided many benefits, it has also given stalkers and ghosters new tools to carry out their behaviors. It is essential for individuals to be aware of the potential risks associated with online communication and to take steps to protect themselves from potential harm. Additionally, it is important for society as a whole to recognize the damaging impact of stalking and ghosting behavior and work towards creating a culture of respect and empathy.
Trauma and PTSD in victims of stalking and ghosting. Stalking and ghosting are both forms of psychological abuse that can have a profound impact on the mental health and well-being of their victims. One of the most significant effects of these behaviors is the development of trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, in victims. Trauma is defined as the psychological and emotional response to a distressing or disturbing event. The experience of stalking or ghosting can be traumatic for many victims, as they may feel helpless, isolated, and unsafe. Victims may also experience anxiety, fear, and hypervigilance as a result of their experiences. PTSD is a type of anxiety disorder that can develop in response to a traumatic event. It is characterized by symptoms such as flashbacks, nightmares, intrusive thoughts, and avoidance of triggers associated with the trauma. In the context of stalking and ghosting, victims may experience these symptoms in response to reminders of their experiences, such as seeing their stalker or receiving messages from their ghoster. Research has shown that victims of stalking and ghosting are at an increased risk of developing PTSD. A study by Spitzberg and Kupak, 2010, found that over 60% of stalking victims reported experiencing symptoms of PTSD, and 94% reported experiencing some form of psychological distress. Similarly, a study by Baumeister, Summer, and Carmona, 2020, found that ghosting was associated with higher levels of PTSD symptoms in victims. The impact of trauma and PTSD on victims of stalking and ghosting can be significant. Victims may struggle with feelings of shame, guilt, and self-blame, and may have difficulty trusting others or forming intimate relationships. They may also experience physical symptoms such as headaches, insomnia, and digestive issues. These symptoms can have a long-term impact on the victim's mental and physical health, as well as their ability to function in their daily life. It is important for victims of stalking and ghosting to seek professional help to address their trauma and PTSD. Treatment may include therapy, medication, and support groups. In addition, victims should be encouraged to develop coping strategies to manage their symptoms, such as mindfulness, exercise, and self-care activities. In conclusion, trauma and PTSD are common consequences of stalking and ghosting behaviors. Victims of these forms of psychological abuse are at an increased risk of developing PTSD and may experience significant long-term impacts on their mental and physical health. It is important for victims to seek professional help to address their trauma and develop coping strategies to manage their symptoms.
Mechanisms and support systems for victims of stalking and ghosting. Victims of stalking and ghosting often feel alone and isolated, making it difficult to cope with the trauma they have experienced. However, there are a number of coping mechanisms and support systems available to help them manage their feelings and begin to heal. One of the most important things that victims can do is to reach out for help. This can be difficult, as many people feel ashamed or embarrassed about what has happened to them, but it is important to remember that they are not to blame for the actions of the stalker or ghoster. There are many organizations that offer support and guidance for victims of stalking and ghosting, including hotlines, counseling services, and support groups. These resources can be incredibly helpful in providing emotional support and practical advice. In addition to seeking support from others, victims of stalking and ghosting can also use coping mechanisms to help them manage their feelings. Mindfulness practices, such as meditation and yoga, can be helpful in reducing stress and anxiety. Exercise and other physical activities can also be effective in reducing feelings of depression and anxiety. Therapy can also be an important tool in coping with the trauma of stalking and ghosting. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and other forms of talk therapy can help victims understand their feelings and develop strategies for managing them. Some therapists also use exposure therapy, which involves gradually exposing victims to situations that trigger their trauma in a safe and controlled environment. It is also important for victims to take steps to protect themselves and ensure their safety. This may involve obtaining a restraining order or changing their phone number and other contact information. Victims should also be cautious about sharing personal information online and should consider using privacy settings to limit who can see their posts and updates. Finally, it is important for victims of stalking and ghosting to remember that healing takes time. It can be a long and difficult journey, but with the right support and coping mechanisms, it is possible to move forward and rebuild a fulfilling life. The legal implications of stalking and ghosting behavior. Stalking and ghosting are not only morally and emotionally distressing but are also illegal behaviors. In this chapter, we will explore the legal implications of stalking and ghosting behavior. Stalking is a criminal offense in many jurisdictions. The laws related to stalking vary by state and country, but most include similar elements. Stalking is generally defined as the persistent and unwanted pursuit or harassment of another person. This can include behaviors such as following, monitoring, threatening, or contacting someone repeatedly without their consent. The legal consequences for stalking can be severe, including fines, imprisonment, and a criminal record. In some cases, stalking may be classified as a felony, particularly if the victim has been physically harmed or threatened with violence. In addition to criminal charges, stalking victims may also be able to obtain a restraining order, which prohibits the offender from contacting them or coming within a certain distance. Ghosting, on the other hand, is not a criminal offense, but it can have legal implications in certain situations. For example, if an employer or potential employer ghosts a job candidate after an interview or during the hiring process, it could potentially lead to legal action. This could include discrimination lawsuits or breach of contract claims if the employer had previously indicated that they would provide a response or feedback. In cases of online dating, ghosting can also lead to legal issues if it is done in a way that could be considered defamation or harassment. For example, if someone ghosts a romantic partner and then posts negative comments or rumors about them online, this could be considered cyberbullying and could potentially result in legal action. It is important to note that the legal implications of stalking and ghosting behavior can be complex, and it is best to seek legal advice in any situation where you feel your rights have been violated. In conclusion, while ghosting is not necessarily a criminal offense, it can still have legal implications in certain situations. Stalking, on the other hand, is a criminal offense and can lead to severe legal consequences. It is important to be aware of these legal implications and to seek help if you feel you have been a victim of stalking or ghosting.
Rehabilitation and treatment options for offenders. Stalking and ghosting behavior can have serious consequences not just for the victims, but also for the offenders. These behaviors may indicate underlying mental health issues or personality disorders that require professional treatment. Rehabilitation and treatment options can not only help the offenders address these underlying issues, but also prevent them from engaging in similar behaviors in the future. One effective treatment approach for stalking and ghosting offenders is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. CBT aims to help offenders identify and change negative thought patterns and behaviors that lead to stalking and ghosting. It also helps them develop healthy coping mechanisms for dealing with difficult emotions and situations. In addition to CBT, other forms of therapy such as psychotherapy, family therapy, or group therapy may also be helpful for addressing underlying issues. In cases where the offender has a mental illness or personality disorder, medication may be prescribed as part of the treatment plan. For example, an offender with a history of bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder may benefit from medication that helps regulate mood swings and impulsive behavior. In addition to therapy and medication, some offenders may be required to attend court-mandated programs or classes aimed at addressing stalking and ghosting behavior. These programs may include anger management, communication skills, and relationship-building classes. It is important to note that rehabilitation and treatment options for offenders should be approached with sensitivity and caution. It is not uncommon for offenders to be in denial or resistant to treatment, and forcing them into therapy or medication may not be effective. Furthermore, not all offenders will respond to the same types of treatment, and individualized treatment plans may be necessary. Ultimately, the goal of rehabilitation and treatment for offenders of stalking and ghosting behavior is to not only prevent further harm to victims, but also to help the offenders address underlying issues and lead healthy, productive lives.
The future of research and intervention for stalking and ghosting behavior. Stalking and ghosting behaviors are complex issues that have far-reaching consequences for victims and society as a whole. While there have been significant advancements in our understanding of these behaviors, there is still much to be learned and improved upon in terms of research and intervention. One area of future research that holds great promise is the use of technology to identify and intervene in stalking and ghosting cases. For example, artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms can be used to analyze patterns of behavior and communication to detect early warning signs of stalking and ghosting. This could enable more proactive and effective interventions to prevent these behaviors from escalating. Another promising avenue for research is the development of more effective treatments for offenders. While current interventions such as counseling and legal sanctions have shown some success, there is still much to be learned about how to effectively address the underlying psychological and social factors that contribute to stalking and ghosting behaviors. New treatments such as cognitive behavioral therapy and trauma-focused interventions may hold promise in this regard. In addition to these research areas, there is also a need for greater public education and awareness about the impacts of stalking and ghosting behaviors. This can help reduce the stigma associated with being a victim and increase reporting of these behaviors, which is essential for effective intervention and prevention. Ultimately, addressing stalking and ghosting behaviors will require a multifaceted approach that involves researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and the general public. By working together to develop and implement effective interventions, we can better support victims and prevent these harmful behaviors from occurring in the first place. Are ghosting and stalking connected in some ways? Yes, ghosting and stalking are connected in that they both involve harmful, intimidating, and often emotionally damaging behaviors. Both can have lasting effects on victims and are not acceptable under any circumstances. While the causes for ghosting and stalking might vary, the outcomes and impacts on victims often overlap. It is essential to recognize the emotional toll that these behaviors can have on individuals and to seek support and guidance when needed. There may be some overlap between the two behaviors in certain situations. For example, if someone is ghosted and continues to try to contact the person who ghosted them despite being ignored or blocked, their behavior could potentially be considered stalking. Similarly, if someone is stalking another person and that person tries to cut off communication by ghosting them, the stalker may become more persistent in their attempts to contact the victim. It's important to recognize that both ghosting and stalking can have serious impacts on individuals' mental health and well-being, and anyone who experiences either behavior should seek support and assistance from a professional.
How to protect yourself against ghosting. Ghosting can be a hurtful and confusing experience. While you can't control someone else's behavior, there are some steps you can take to protect yourself against ghosting. Look for red flags. Pay attention to the way the person communicates with you and how they treat you. If you notice any red flags, such as inconsistent communication, canceling plans frequently or seeming disinterested, take these as potential warning signs. Set clear expectations. If you're starting to date someone new, set clear expectations from the beginning. Discuss your communication preferences and how often you'd like to talk or see each other. Be honest with yourself. If you feel like the person is not interested or you're not enjoying the relationship, be honest with yourself and with them. It's better to end things early on than to wait for them to ghost you. Focus on your own well-being. If you have been ghosted, it's important to prioritize your own well-being. Reach out to friends and family for support. Take care of yourself by engaging in activities that you enjoy, and remember that the behavior of the other person is not a reflection of your worth. Learn from the experience. While ghosting can be painful, it can also be an opportunity for growth. Take some time to reflect on the experience and think about what you learned from it. This can help you to better understand your own needs and preferences in future relationships. How to maintain high level of self-esteem. Maintaining a high level of self-esteem can be a challenging task, but it is essential for a happy and healthy life. Here are some tips to help you maintain a high level of self-esteem. Recognize your strengths. Take the time to acknowledge your accomplishments and the things you are good at. Focus on your strengths and use them to your advantage. Practice self-care. Take care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. Eat well, exercise regularly, get enough sleep, and take time for activities you enjoy. Avoid negative self-talk. Challenge negative thoughts and replace them with positive affirmations. Speak to yourself as you would a close friend or loved one. Set realistic goals. Set goals that are achievable and work towards them. Celebrate your successes, no matter how small. Surround yourself with positive people. Surround yourself with people who uplift and support you. Avoid those who bring you down or make you feel bad about yourself. Practice gratitude. Focus on the good in your life and practice gratitude. Take time each day to reflect on the things you are grateful for. Learn from mistakes. No one is perfect, and mistakes are a part of life. Learn from them, and use them as an opportunity for growth and self-improvement. By incorporating these habits into your daily life, you can maintain a high level of self-esteem and live a happier, more fulfilling life. How to set boundaries against ghosting and stalking. Setting boundaries is an important step in protecting oneself against the harmful effects of ghosting and stalking. Here are some tips on how to set boundaries. Clearly communicate your boundaries. It's important to be clear and direct when communicating your boundaries. Let the other person know what is and isn't acceptable behavior. Be assertive. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself and assert your boundaries. If someone is not respecting your boundaries, be firm and let them know that their behavior is not acceptable. Use I statements. When communicating your boundaries, use I statements to express how you feel. For example, I feel uncomfortable when you show up unannounced is more effective than you need to stop showing up unannounced. Stick to your boundaries. Once you have established your boundaries, it's important to stick to them. If someone is not respecting your boundaries, it's okay to cut off contact with them. Seek support. If you are struggling to set and maintain boundaries, seek support from friends, family, or a therapist. They can provide guidance and help you stay accountable. Remember, setting boundaries is about taking care of yourself and your well-being. It's okay to prioritize your own needs and say no to behavior that makes you uncomfortable or unsafe.
How to reach for guidance. If you are experiencing stalking or ghosting behavior, or you know someone who is, it is important to reach out for guidance and support. Here are some ways to do so. Talk to a trusted friend or family member. Sometimes just talking to someone you trust can be helpful in processing your thoughts and emotions. They can also offer a different perspective and provide emotional support. Seek professional help. A mental health professional, such as a therapist or counselor, can help you work through your feelings and develop coping mechanisms. They can also provide guidance on how to stay safe and protect yourself from further harm. Contact a support group. There are many organizations and support groups that specialize in helping victims of stalking and ghosting. These groups can provide a safe and supportive environment where you can share your experiences with others who have been through similar situations. Contact law enforcement. If you feel that your safety is in danger, contact law enforcement. They can provide protection and help you obtain a restraining order or file a police report. Remember, it is important to prioritize your safety and seek help when needed. Don't hesitate to reach out for guidance and support. How to celebrate small victories and seek out activities. Celebrating small victories and seeking out activities can be a great way to boost your self-esteem and help you cope with the effects of stalking and ghosting. Here are some tips. Keep a list of your accomplishments. Write down every small or big achievement you accomplish, and keep track of your progress. Celebrating these accomplishments can help you see your own strengths and abilities. Engage in activities that bring you joy. Participate in activities that you enjoy doing, such as going for a walk, reading a book, or cooking your favorite meal. These activities can help boost your mood and make you feel good about yourself. Surround yourself with positive people. Spend time with people who uplift and support you. These individuals can provide a sense of encouragement and validation, which can help boost your self-esteem. Seek professional support. Consider seeking support from a therapist or counselor who can provide guidance on coping with the effects of stalking and ghosting. They can also help you develop healthy coping mechanisms and set boundaries. Practice self-care. Take care of your physical and emotional needs by getting enough sleep, eating well, and engaging in stress-reducing activities like meditation or yoga. Remember, setting boundaries, seeking guidance, and celebrating small victories are all essential steps in maintaining a healthy sense of self-esteem and coping with the effects of stalking and ghosting. What is the toll of ghosting and stalking? What it can lead to? Ghosting and stalking can have serious consequences on both the victim and the offender. For victims, the toll can be significant and long-lasting, leading to emotional, physical, and psychological harm. Ghosting can leave the victim feeling rejected, humiliated, and confused. It can damage their self-esteem and lead to feelings of worthlessness and anxiety. In some cases, victims may also experience depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and other mental health issues. On the other hand, stalking can have even more severe consequences. Stalking is a pattern of behavior that is intended to harass, intimidate, or frighten someone, and can often lead to physical violence. Victims of stalking may experience fear, anxiety, and a sense of helplessness. They may feel like they are constantly being watched, followed, or threatened, and may even need to change their daily routine or move to a new location for safety reasons. Stalking can also have significant legal consequences for the offender. In many jurisdictions, stalking is a criminal offense that can result in jail time, fines, and other legal penalties. Additionally, stalking behavior can have lasting effects on the offender, such as damaging their reputation, limiting job opportunities, and straining personal relationships. Overall, the toll of ghosting and stalking can be significant for both the victim and the offender. It is essential to address these behaviors early and seek appropriate support and intervention to prevent long-term harm. In summary, stalking and ghosting are harmful behaviors that can have serious consequences for victims. They can be motivated by a range of factors, including a desire for control, revenge, manipulation, avoidance of confrontation, or a lack of empathy. These behaviors can take different forms and occur in various contexts, such as romantic relationships, friendships, or the workplace. Technology can both facilitate and prevent stalking and ghosting, but it is important to recognize that these behaviors are unacceptable and can lead to significant psychological harm for victims. Rehabilitation and treatment for stalkers and ghosters can be challenging and require an individualized approach. It may involve psychological or pharmacological therapy, legal or social intervention, or a combination of these approaches. Seeking professional help is crucial for individuals struggling with these behaviors to address underlying issues and learn more constructive ways to cope and communicate. Overall, it is important to recognize the harmful impact of stalking and ghosting and take steps to prevent and address these behaviors. This includes promoting healthy communication and boundaries, seeking support and guidance when needed, and fostering a culture of respect and empathy in all relationships. Some of the strategies that can help prevent stalking and ghosting are: restricting your social media posts to your friends and not public, checking your privacy settings on social networking sites and limiting the amount of information you supply, being aware of geolocation and tagging on social networking sites and ensuring that it's disabled on your smartphone, not answering the phone with your address or phone number if the caller is not known to you, not using the same password for everything, reporting stalking or harassment to website administrators or law enforcement agencies, empowering yourself and others to understand, recognize, and address stalking, mobilizing men and boys as allies in prevention efforts, creating and supporting safe environments within relationships, schools, and communities through programs and policies that reduce risk and promote healthy relationships. By following these tips, you can protect yourself from being targeted or tracked by stalkers or ghosters. You can also help others who may be experiencing these behaviors by offering them support and resources. Remember, you are not alone, and you deserve respect and safety in all your interactions.